And in China, too, the latest trade figures are painting a gloomy economic picture. Chinese exports contracted in October for the first time since the start of the pandemic. The 0.3% drop was worse than forecasts, which predicted exports would grow, and comes as Beijing doubles down on its stringent zero-COVID approach. On Monday, China recorded its highest number of daily COVID cases in 6 months. To find out more about gloomy trade figures across the region, our reporter James Chater spoke with Nick Marro, lead analyst for global trade at the Economist Intelligence Unit based in Hong Kong.
What's behind this negative trade picture for Taiwan at the moment, and could it drag on Taiwan's overall economic growth?
Well, if you think about where things stood around this time last year, there were a number of really positive things that were boosting Taiwanese exports. So we were right in the throes of the global chip shortage. There was still really strong international demand for consumer electronics, and that all really played to Taiwan's strength. But right now, when we consider the demand factors internationally, things are in a much more dire situation. We're seeing a slowdown in consumer demand in the US and the EU, and we're seeing a very sharp slowdown in import demand in China specifically, because trade is such an important part of the Taiwanese economy. And given that there might be trickle-down impacts on things like employment, wages, household incomes, that's going to keep things relatively tight in terms of economic pressure heading into next year.
China's also just posted some of its weakest trade statistics since the pandemic began. Do you think that picture is going to give the Chinese leadership pause for thought on its own COVID-0 approach?
In short, probably not. The zero COVID policy in China is incredibly political. What we saw coming out of the Party Congress meetings was sustained attachment to that policy. If we are going to see any movement away, it's probably going to be very gradual. Chinese exports dropping off is a sign that demand in the US and the EU and other key export destinations is faltering. And that has implications for Taiwanese exporters, because Taiwanese exporters often send to China the intermediate components that then go into the finished products, which are then re-exported. And so I think we can sum up by saying, as long as the Chinese economy remains under stress, a lot of that stress is going to naturally spill over to Taiwan as well.
We've seen weak export data across Asia in the last couple of weeks, first in South Korea, in China, and now in Taiwan as well. What does all of this tell us about the prospects for the global economy in the coming months?
Well, we're expecting the global economy to enter 2023 in a pretty fragile state. The US and the EU are likely going to post ranging from kind of milder to more severe recessions. And that's bad for Asia. Asia is very, very dependent on export growth. But overall, we are expecting Asia's export boom to end. And that's a big deal because it was Asia's export boom that really allowed the region to navigate through the pandemic. And so heading to 2023, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of potential pain heading our way.